Thank you, Anna. And now I'm happy to introduce and welcome back Rev Marilyn Sprague.
Yeah.
She's an ordained minister with Centers for Spiritual Living. She's an award-winning educator and a heartfelt truth teacher. Rev Marilyn also serves on the CSL Minister Council, supporting the development of resources for ministers on the pathway to ordination. Let's welcome Rev Marilyn.
Thank you, Gail. Let's see. Good morning. So by now, many of us have already celebrated this holiday weekend in one way or another. Maybe we've gathered with family and friends, shared a meal, watched fireworks, or maybe we simply enjoyed the beautiful summer weather with a beautiful sunset. Some of us may have spent the weekend reflecting on our nation's history and the continuing, ongoing journey toward freedom, justice, and belonging for all. Whatever this weekend has held for each of us, one thing is true. Our attention has more than likely been drawn to some form of light. Perhaps it was that golden ray at the end of a day as the sun was setting. Perhaps it was the glow of a fire pit in the backyard. Maybe it was sparklers dancing with the ray of fireworks. Or maybe it was even the quiet glow of your remote-controlled LED candles on your patio. Let me tell you, I have a few. Anyway, light is a way that captures our attention. Somehow we're drawn to it, and it makes me wonder, what if every burst of light in the outside world is really quietly beckoning us to go within? Because fireworks fade, yet the divine spark within each of us shines eternally. And that's where I'd like to spend our time today. Not talking about fireworks that are in the sky and bursting with all their zeal, but about the sacred fire, the spark that is already alive within each one of us, and it is beckoning us to live from the sizzle of zeal. And this is a quote of Charles Fillmore that I absolutely adore. I believe he made this statement when he was in his 90s. I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm and spring forth with a mighty faith to do the things that ought to be done by me. You can just hear the sizzle of zeal in that. I fairly sizzle. He didn't say, I occasionally warm up. No, he said, I fairly sizzle. There is so much life in his words. There's movement, there's positive expectancy, there's joy, and there is exuberance for life itself. And isn't that what each of us is looking for? Not necessarily more to do, but more vitality, more life while we're doing it. And that's my invitation to us this morning, to discover what it means to live from the sizzle of divine zeal. When we look at how unity defines zeal, it is the ability to move forward through spiritual motivation. The ability to move forward through spiritual motivation. Notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say move forward by pushing harder, trying to make something happen, working longer, or pretending everything is wonderful. It says we move forward through spiritual motivation. So zeal isn't about volume and trying harder. It's about vitality. It's about an inner spark that already exists within each of us. In other words, it's already there, for our Creator has already bequeathed this gift to us, because the Creator gives of itself to itself in the form of its creation, which is you and me. And so zeal is always beckoning us towards growth, towards creativity, towards healing. When we think of the New Thought movement, it was founded on that principle of wholeness and healing and oneness, towards love, and most of all towards each of us becoming who and what we were created to be. And that's the power of zeal. It's not something we manufacture. It's not something we do to try harder. It's a divine capacity that is the gift of our Creator, and it's alive within each of us. Now, one of its outward expressions is enthusiasm, and the Greek root literally means God within. So enthusiasm, the Greek word, literally means God within. So again, enthusiasm isn't something we're manufacturing from outside of ourselves. It's simply what happens when we accept the gift, the power of zeal, and allow it to flow freely in, through, and as us. So how many of us have ever met someone like their joy is so genuine, their kindness is so authentic, it just seems to ooze out of them and it's so natural. Their hope, their enthusiasm awakens hope and enthusiasm just when they enter the room. It's like there is this spark that just ignites and fills the energy of the room. And maybe we've met that person and we're like, wow, I'd love a little of whatever they're having. And so when I say that, I already see some laughter. I cannot help but think of the very famous scene in the classic movie when Harry met Sally. I'll have what she's having. Many of us know that scene. So the divine spark, the power of zeal, lives within each of us, every single person. Yet here's what I've discovered, that although the gift of zeal has already been given to us, it's our awareness of that divine spark that can become dimmed, can become covered. And it's not because that spark went out, because it hasn't. It might be disappointment that is covering it up. It could be fear that is covering it up. Maybe even regret. Maybe even habitual patterns in routine, everyday living that just quietly covers up that zest, that zeal. So we don't have to create the spark. We get to, I love that when you said, Gail, I get to read the daily word. We get to uncover what has been there all along. And so what does uncovering the divine spark look like? Because it does get covered up at times. Uncovering that divine spark doesn't happen all at once. It can happen. My experience has been that it's kind of a progressional thing. It happens with one small shift in awareness at a time. And I found it helpful to think of a continuum, which is not a report card. It's simply a way of noticing, where is my awareness settling in this now moment? Because we know everything is constantly moving. So a continuum simply helps us understand, where is my awareness settling in this now moment? And so we begin with the opposite of zeal, which is apathy, where that inner voice says, why bother? And if we leave that unattended, apathy easily can become regret. If only. How many of us have ever had the if only, or heard someone, their constant story is if only? And before long, regret shifts to nostalgia, which is back then. The best of my life was back then. Now I want to make a very, very important distinction here. Nostalgia is not the same as remembering. So I'm going to share an example. This weekend I did host a group of friends for dinner, and before everyone arrived, I placed slips of paper on the table that had questions that invited a story. So questions like, share a memorable road trip, vacation, retreat, or a spontaneous outing that still brings a smile to your face. What is it about that experience that continues to delight you? Or tell us about a yes you're especially glad you gave. Those are a couple of examples of the questions that were on the slips. Now, something beautiful happened as we began to share stories. There was laughter that filled the room. Individuals were leaning in to the table rather than sitting back in their chairs with their arms crossed. They were leaning in. The facial gestures were of smiles, were of encouragement, were of that you could feel the body center, the heart centers opening up, and you could feel a palpable energy encircling the group as we shared individual stories. Now that's the gift of remembering. So memory allows us to visit the past. Nostalgia asks us to move in. One honors the past, the other lives there. And when we stay there too long in the past, we stop expecting life to delight us. So thankfully, on this continuum, the story doesn't end there. Gratitude is that point that is the turning point. Because instead of asking, why isn't life what it used to be? Gratitude says, what a gift this is. Gratitude gathers all the blessings of yesterday and carries them forward into today. And once gratitude opens the door, something else beautiful happens. Curiosity shows up. And curiosity says, I wonder. Have you ever watched a child? I wonder, let's go on an adventure. So curiosity doesn't require certainty. So it isn't that I have to know all the facts, I don't have to know all the details. I can simply allow my imagination, I wonder. And it simply opens the door to possibility. And when we're opening the door to possibility, the first expression of zeal shows up, which is joy. That is the first outward expression of the gift of the divine spark of zeal. And when joy shows up, then something else begins to shift. Enthusiasm, remember enthusiasm, God within, allows that power of zeal to be revealed. And what happens is life begins to unfold with ease. It flows freely. How many of us have ever said coincidences or synchronicities? And it's kind of like, the cosmic switchboard heard my request and just put the connection there. Zeal is no longer hidden. And so what happens is we are accepting the gift of zeal. We are saying yes to the gift of zeal. And we're allowing Spirit to move through us instead of us moving against the gift of zeal, which is typically resistance. So we find ourselves with less strain. We have more trust. There's less woebegone of lack, insufficiency, hatred, anger, all of that because we're trusting God is good and good is God. There's more joy, there's more life, and definitely that's zeal expressing itself fully. And so I invite us to listen to the movement on that continuum. Apathy says, why bother? Regret says, if only. Nostalgia says, back then. Gratitude says, thank you. Curiosity says, I wonder. Joy says, yes. Enthusiasm says, God within. Zeal smiles and says, let's go. And so it's a beautiful progression, moving us from living in yesterday to embracing today and to anticipating the fullness, the richness of life tomorrow. And this continuum reminds me of something that each of us who has ever gardened has more than likely encountered. A healthy looking plant, when gently lifted from the pot, revealing roots circling around and around and around that small space. It's called root bound. So it doesn't mean that the plant is unhealthy. The roots aren't failing, quite the opposite. They are full of life, but they've outgrown the space that once helped it to flourish. And isn't that true of us too? Sometimes our thinking circles around and around and around. The same disappointments, the same fears, the same assumptions, the same old stories, until we actually forget fresh soil waiting beyond what's familiar. So the invitation is, instead of wishing life were different or longing to return to yesterday, gratitude gently moves us and loosens the soil, and it reminds us that yesterday helped shape us and it doesn't define us. And it's not difficult. Gratitude isn't difficult. What it does is it creates room for hope. And so the power of this continuum as we move along from where we've seen apathy all the way to the full expression of zeal is that life is fully available to us and we get to choose. And the continuum is a resource, is a tool that helps us be aware. Where am I choosing to place my focus today? Doesn't make us bad, doesn't make us wrong. We are human beings. And it just helps us be aware. What am I choosing today? Now, what's beautiful about the unity teaching is that it provides us with spiritual practices that help us to uncover the zeal when it's been covered. And so I'd like to share 3 specific, easy to do spiritual practices that can help us. I mean, we get to choose. They're easy to do. We can incorporate them in our daily life. We get to choose our spiritual practice. So I've already mentioned gratitude. Gratitude loosens the soil. So if we've been in apathy, if we've been in regret, when we get to gratitude, that space of giving thanks for all that's been, even in the challenging times, yet opening up to what is available to us, it's like loosening the soil. When we take that pot out of the plant, we loosen that soil up. And it allows us to make room for zeal to begin expressing in our life. The second practice I'd like to share is praise. And again, I'm going to go back to the co-founder of Unity, Charles Fillmore, with a quote, "We increase whatever we praise. The whole creation responds to praise and is glad." So, how many of us know the spiritual practice of praise and raise prayer? Okay, we're going to do it. Okay. All right, so it always starts with self. So we start with, I praise my life. Let's get our hands together. I praise my life. And now if you're sitting, it's, I raise my life. And it can be in the name of love, gratitude, wholeness, life, whatever God quality you want to choose. So we'll just choose love. So I praise my life. I raise my life in the name of love. Now, if you have someone that you think is really contrary and you really don't like being around them, a great spiritual practice is to include them in your praise and raise prayer. Might be conditions in our outer environment. It could be our country, could be the world, could be a war. We praise world leaders. So we could say, I praise world leaders. I raise world leaders in the name of peace or love. Wow. You get to choose. And then you always end it with everyone everywhere. So I praise everyone everywhere. Let's do it. I praise everyone everywhere. I raise everyone everywhere in the name of love. Or this holiday weekend, we could say in the name of freedom. Now here's what happens. It's a somatic experiential. It literally shifts energy. So if you're feeling really, really down, a great practice is to do praise and raise. And it only takes a couple. And I mean, really get your body into it. Like, I praise my life. I raise my life in the name of joy. And then go through. If there's someone that's really hounding you and you're like having a conflict, praise and raise them. Because again, what Charles Fillmore is telling us, whatever we praise appreciates in value. And so if we're praising someone, pretty soon they can know, they will either change or they will be removed from your life. You don't have to resist it. You don't have to fight it. You don't have to be contrary in return. You can do praise and raise. And they will feel it. They will feel it. So praise and raise. So praise is a second spiritual practice. It is absolutely one of my favorite because it can shift a mood just like that. Because you're embodying it. It's a physical movement. And then the third which so many of us in the New Thought are familiar with, and that is affirmative prayer. And what's really, really important is we are not beseeching a power outside of ourselves. We are going within to that divine spark, to that divinity within, and we are naming and claiming our good. We're recognizing our oneness, we're unifying our oneness with that source, and we're naming and claiming our good. We're giving thanks, and we're saying, and so it is. That's positive expectancy. And so it is means it's done. No, we don't go back and dig it up to say, well, gee, I wonder if it's really working. The prayer is done. If you want to continue to pray, you can. But believe, have conviction. The power of your spoken word is creative. So when we unify with that one power, when we recognize our unity with that one power, and then we name and claim our good, the law is already saying yes. And that is the power of affirmative prayer. The power of affirmative prayer. And when we're in affirmative prayer, it is one of the most powerful spiritual practices that allows us to uncover the divine spark that resides at the core of our being. It literally opens us up to that infusion of spirit, to that influx of spirit that allows us to express what is wanting to emerge. It's waiting for an invitation. It's waiting for us to say yes to life. And so when the fireworks are all closing out this weekend, let us always remember the divine spark never goes out. Ever. It continues to beckon us from regret, through gratitude, into curiosity, awakening joy, and revealing God within. And then the power of zeal expresses fully and whispers, let's go. So Charles Fillmore understood that. That's why he could so powerfully proclaim, I fairly sizzle with zeal and enthusiasm, and with a mighty faith, I go forth to do the things that ought to be done by me. So my prayer for each of us today is that we trust the divine spark just a little bit more. Not asking you to embrace it fully, I'm just saying trust it a little bit more. May we loosen whatever is bound in our heart. May we welcome fresh soil, fresh possibilities, fresh expressions of life. And may we make room for the full power of zeal to glow, to grow, and yes, to sizzle. And again, because long after this holiday ends, long after the fireworks, this internal light called the power of zeal, a gift of our Creator, is shining brightly. It shines in each of us, shines in me, and it shines in all life. So my question is, what can we do to allow that light to shine more brightly through each of us? And when we say yes to allow that light, that divine zeal to flow through us, that's what it means to live from the sizzle of zeal. And so as we move into our meditation, I'm asking us to go inward, because inward is where the brightest light shines.